Hey guys, it's Will. So if you watched a documentary in the past decade or so, you've probably seen this effect. It's called the parallaxing effect, and it's where you take a still image, you cut out the foreground, the middle ground, the background, whatever, and you move a 3D camera around. So it makes a 2D image look 3D. It's pretty cool. Let's jump in. Here is the image that we're starting off with. I got this from Pond 5, so this image is really great for what we're doing because it has obviously a foreground with this building over here on the right, and some of the rubble here on the left. And then we've got a midground, which is the I guess, collection of buildings in the background, and then that tree right there. And then the background, obviously, which would be the sky and that hill area up there. So let's get started with cutting this image out. All right, so this is it. This is the best part. It's just so much fun. It takes forever. Don't worry, I'm not gonna make you watch this whole thing, but I did want you to see that this is kind of a long process. A lot of people cut out images in Photoshop, which is fine. If you're more comfortable with that program, that's great. I am not. I can't stand Photoshop, so I'm doing it in After Effects, which it might be the harder way to do this, but it's just what I'm comfortable with. And you might notice I am kind of scaling the image in and out to kind of figure out where my mask needs to go, because the image is blurry once you get to this scale, and you almost have to add details in that aren't really there. So if you're not really sure where the mask needs to go, don't worry about it. It's so small, it's so minute, no one's gonna notice if you add a little detail here and there that aren't really there in the image. It just makes it look good. So anyways, let's speed this up. And voila, we have a fully cut out layer. I've already cut out the building on the right, the little house with the decorations on the top. And I've cut out this rubble layer. Now each of these are 3D objects. So we're gonna create a 3D camera, and over here where it says one view, if you click that and change it to 2 views, the default is gonna be above your scene. So this is just giving us like a bird's eye view directly down onto your scene, so you can see the position of these 3D layers a little bit easier from this viewpoint. Now I'm just gonna move this layer forward a little bit towards our camera and do the same with the rubble layer. All right, that's looking good. Let's start on our background layer. I actually cut out a whole bunch of layers in this one, which is probably not necessary, especially for a tutorial, but I felt like this would really help sell the effect. So, okay, let's speed this up again. So once again, we're just cutting out this layer, putting in as much detail as we can. So now we've got our foreground layer, this house, a layer in between the house and the buildings behind it, which is that rubble layer, and then the layer that we just cut out. So that gives us 4 layers total. Now you can get away with just doing 2 layers, but it really does help to cut out more than 2. Really, if you can get 3 or 4, that's great, because when you start moving your 3D camera around, you get all of those layers moving in front of each other, and that's really what sells this effect. But of course, there is a problem. If you look over here, you can see a bit of that building right behind that building, which doesn't make any sense. And we're getting the same problem on our rubble over there. So we're gonna have to jump over to Photoshop, a program that I despise, but for what we're doing, this really is the best program to use. Okay, so we need to get rid of what we saw behind each layer. Now, you don't have to get rid of the entire house. That would be a whole lot of unnecessary work. So what you want to do is just get rid of the edge that you would see underneath that 3D layer within, you know, a reasonable panning or arcing range of the camera. And we're going to be using the spot heal, or the spot replacement tool here, which basically allows you to select an area and then kind of draw with that area, if that makes any sense. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and save this image as its own file and jump back into After Effects. What we're gonna do is replace this layer with the image that we just made. So it'll have the same mask, everything will stay the same, except you won't see that building behind itself anymore. All right, so I'm just adjusting these layers in on the X and Y axis, as well as in Z space, to get it just right. Now I'm gonna kind of sink this background layer, the far background, down until we don't have any duplicates there, so we don't have to jump into Photoshop and take care of that. Then it's just a matter of getting your camera movement down, however you want the camera to move through the scene. I chose to have it sort of dolly out. It's kind of like flying back away from the wreckage and revealing this house here and this little rack there, which is not really realistic looking, but it's a still image that looks better than a still image, so I'm happy. And of course, the final touches, I took a couple of atmosphere assets and dropped them in here in between each layer. So you've got like a little bit of dust or fog or haze moving through the scene. You know, just drop the opacity way down and maybe add a little bit of blur just to give it a little bit of movement in between each layer. It just helps separate the layers. Oh, wow. My first video. So obviously this one was more of it was intended to be kind of like a quick tip video, but it ended up being almost 8 minutes long. So normally something like this would be a much longer video, but I really just wanted to get something done and on YouTube so that I can continue to put out content each week. So in the future, the videos will probably be longer. They're gonna go into much more detail. And I know I glossed over a lot of information in this video that might be beneficial to somebody who doesn't really understand After Effects yet or is just getting started. So in the future, I will try to kind of aim my videos towards people who are just starting out in After Effects. Anyways, I'll see you next week.